My uncle tried to steal my grandmother's house while she was still alive. Not after she passed, while she was sitting in her living room, drinking tea, watching her programs. He showed up one afternoon with a solicitor he'd hired himself and a set of documents he wanted her to sign. She signed nothing, but she also didn't tell anyone what had happened for 3 weeks. She was 81 years old, and she was frightened, and she didn't want to cause trouble. That's the part that stays with me. My grandmother raised 4 children in that house. She'd lived there for 53 years. It was paid off, worth considerably more than it had been when she and my grandfather bought it, and my grandfather had been gone for 11 years. She lived alone. My uncle, her youngest son, my dad's brother, had decided that made her vulnerable. She finally told my mom during a phone call, mentioned it almost in passing, like it was something minor that had happened. My mom called my dad. My dad called me. I was at her house within 2 hours. She showed me the documents. I read them carefully. Then I took photos of every page, and I called the solicitor I knew from work. What he told me when he called back changed everything about how we handled the next 3 months. The documents my uncle had brought were a lasting power of attorney, specifically a property and financial affairs LPA, naming himself as the sole attorney. An LPA gives someone legal authority to make decisions on another person's behalf. In the wrong hands, over an elderly person living alone, it's one of the most powerful documents in existence. It would have given my uncle control over my grandmother's finances and property while she was still alive. My solicitor was very clear. The document hadn't been signed. That was the only thing that mattered right now. But the attempt itself raised serious concerns, specifically around whether my grandmother's existing arrangements were adequate to protect her going forward. We had 2 priorities. First, my grandmother needed independent legal advice about her own wishes and her own protections from a solicitor she chose herself with no family present. Second, my uncle needed to understand that what he had attempted had been documented and that we were watching. My grandmother chose her own solicitor. I drove her to the appointment and waited outside. She was in there for an hour and 20 minutes. When she came out, she looked lighter somehow, like something had been lifted. She told me in the car that she'd always known he was the difficult one. She said it the way you say something you've known for a long time but never said out loud. She updated her own arrangements that day. Everything documented, everything witnessed, everything exactly as she wanted it. My uncle called my dad 2 weeks later. He'd heard we'd seen a solicitor. He wanted to talk. My dad told him there was nothing to talk about. That should have been the end of it. It wasn't. My uncle contested the updated arrangement 6 months after my grandmother passed. He claimed she hadn't had capacity when she made her decisions, that she'd been unduly influenced, that the documents didn't reflect her true wishes. He had no evidence. He had a grievance dressed up as a legal argument. We had the solicitor's notes from her appointment. We had the file he'd kept, meticulous because he was that kind of professional, that documented her clarity, her understanding, her specific and considered instructions. We had the records of the attempt my uncle had made with his own documents while she was alive, which established a pattern the court found relevant. The challenge was dismissed. Costs were awarded against my uncle. He didn't attend her funeral. That was his choice. I don't know how he lives with it. My grandmother left the house to her 4 children equally. That included my dad. That included my uncle. She was, to the end, more generous than he deserved. We sold the house last year. My dad used his share to pay off the last of his mortgage. He said she'd have liked that. I think he's right. I think about her every time I drive past that street. 53 years she lived there. She deserved to leave it on her own terms. She did. If you've ever had to protect someone you love from someone who should have known better, drop it in the comments. And if you want more complete stories with no part 2s that never come, follow the page. New story every day.